Hello there and welcome. Today, I thought I'd talk a little bit about the recent news that F1 Manager 25 might be cancelled. So far, the news has come from an independent investment firm, not from Frontier themselves. So until we actually hear from them, I am going to be a little bit hopeful. But let's be fair, I've taken a look into this the last couple of days, it's not looking good. But until Frontier says either yes, it's been cancelled, or no, it's been not, we actually don't know. So probably, hopefully, going to get an answer in the next couple of days, maybe weeks. But if not, I can imagine that they might postpone that announcement until after Christmas in the hopes of getting a little bit more Christmas sales. But let's talk a little bit about what has actually been said. And this meme post here by Bo actually does sum it up pretty well. It's not looking good in it. And that is fairly accurate in this situation. So let's go over what actually is going on. In September, Frontier said in a financial statement it had held commercial discussions with an IP partner that had resulted in the voluntary termination of a contract for a future game before full development started. The identity of that game had previously been kept out of the public eye. Now, however, private analysis firm Zeus Capital has been shared online, identifying the game in question as F1 Manager 25. As first reported by Traxian, this analysis claims the F1 Manager series is yet to turn a profit, compared to Frontier's other profitable franchises, Elite Dangerous, Planet Coaster, Planet Zoo, and Jurassic World Evolution. Zeus Capital's analysis is not intended for public dissemination. However, Eurogamer can verify the information is as reported. We contacted Frontier for comment. Now, a lot of people say that this last sentence is basic confirmation that the game has been cancelled. Basically, Eurogamer is just confirming that, yes, Zeus Capital has a investment analysis that does state F1 Manager has been cancelled. We still haven't actually heard it from Frontier. So while it's looking really, really bleak, we don't have a confirmation just yet. Now, you might also ask why exactly would Frontier bail on F1 Manager, the series? And let's be honest, it's not done as well as you would expect. And since F1 is a big IP around the world, the license probably cost a fair bit as well, which also doesn't help the problem of revenue. And to just explain this into a little bit more detail, I thought we'd take a look at the numbers and a few other things. But before that, the interesting part here, my last little bit of hopium, if you will, for F1 Manager 25, is the fact that it said that had commercial discussion with an IP partner that resulted in a voluntary termination of a contract for a future game. Now, Frontier has 3 IP partners: F1, and also Universal for Jurassic World series. But they actually do also have a partnership with Games Workshop for the Warhammer 40k stuff. And so far, they've released 2, Warhammer type games, and I thought we'd take a quick look at them. This is the first one that they released, which is Chaos Gate. And it released a couple of years ago in May, and as you can see, it did fairly decently. It's actually sold a lot of copies, but doesn't look to be doing too great now, which kind of is fair. It's not something that you play forever. So 12,000 on release, dropped down to about 2,000 people a couple of weeks later, and then stayed there. But that's not bad for the first foray into Warhammer series. Now, the second game, Realms of Ruin, Age of Sigmar, really did not do well. And it did well in F1 Manager. It actually did worse than F1 Manager series has done so far, reportedly. And what this means is straight up that this was a really, really bad game all considered. You can see there's 6 players right now. It peaked at 1,500 and basically released last year in November, almost a year ago. And it immediately dropped to 200-ish players just in a couple of weeks. Now, apparently, this supposedly took 3 years and 20 million to develop. And as you can imagine, they did not even get close to recouping any of that. And honestly, you can kind of say the same for F1 Manager. And that's kind of what I want to talk about a little bit now too. But as you can see, I do still have that tiny bit of hopium that the title in question, or rather the IP partner in question, is Games Workshop, and that there's just a little bit of confusion somewhere. But honestly, it doesn't look good. There's just those 3 partners. No way they're giving up Jurassic World. Jurassic World 3 is coming out next year, I believe. So we're not getting That is not the case. It's going to be either Games Workshop or F1. But yeah, I want to talk a little bit about how F1 has done. And the initial game, this is 22 here, started out with 25,000 players and immediately dropped quite drastically. And the reason for this is fairly simple. The first F1 Manager game did not release in a good state. Let's put it like that. Tires all work the same. The soft tire was just as good as the hard tire on any track. The development was every slider to the right, and you'd be dominating very, very quickly. And generally, there was not a lot of depth to the game. It looked good, which honestly is a tag you can give to every single one of the F1 Manager games. But it didn't have any strategic depth, and as such, a lot of the players that were really, really looking forward to this because we didn't have a proper motorsport management game in forever, well, dropped it immediately. And you're going to see just how bad the effect was. So, according to Steam database, it's about 300,000 people or so that bought this game. It's estimated. I don't actually have the numbers. But you can see from the player counts here that it did not do too good. By the first year and the second game coming out, it was down to 2,000 players here as a peak. And that is not amazing. Now, when it comes to 23, this is kind of where the downfall began, if you will. And as you can see, from the 25,000 that played the 22 on release, we're now down to 6,400. The game basically lost almost 80% of its player base in a year. 80% of prospective buyers in just the first year of game. And honestly, this can be attributed to the state of 22's release. That's number one. But also the absolute PR nightmare that they created for themselves when they said we're cutting any sort of support from 22 just 2 months in. But yeah, already they lost a lot of the people. There's not a lot of people that really stick around to play this game. As you can see, it dropped even further down than 22 did by the time 24 released, and that is pretty bad. That's a pretty bad scenario for a game like this. Now, it did go to Game Pass, which of course did have an effect on how many people bought it, and also how many people would show up on Steam. But it's still not a very comfortable number to think about. And as you can imagine, this definitely had an effect on the income from sales. Now, this year's edition was back up to 12,000 people. So we're getting more people that are getting back into it, that are starting to kind of want to play the game again. And that is good. The price was also cut in half. So in terms of income, probably around the same as you would get from 22. But this one's only been out for, as you can see, 4 months. So we need a little bit more time to get an idea. But it is slowly dwindling in terms of the player base. We have about 1,000, 2,000 here. Peak players daily, which is a decent amount, but we'll have to see how much this drops by the time we say get to July next year. And it's definitely not looking like these numbers are going to stay up unless we get an amazing Christmas sale. But I just wanted to drop this in here as a very short explanation of why I think F1 Manager 25 might very well get cancelled. Again, I would like to get an actual answer for Frontier, but there's a couple of reasons why we might not get that in the near future. One is that Christmas is rapidly approaching, just a month away. And let's face it, Christmas is a good season for games. They go on discount, they get bought for as presents, things like that. So if they're going to do something negative in terms of news, they probably do want to wait until Christmas is over and done with. Now, my second piece of hopium for F1 Manager is the fact that we're still getting updates. We got 1.9 just a little while ago. As you can see, Monday this week. So with that in mind, I think that they might have cancelled 25, but to fulfill their contract with the with F1, they're going to still support this game until the contract runs out next year. I think that is kind of what we can hope for. And if they are, that would maybe even be better than getting 25 as a game. And the reason why I think that is because if they can just keep on building on what they have, rather than breaking things down and starting, well, not really over, but trying to change things up a little bit too much, which we saw with this year's game with the development being absolutely busted, I think that could result in a better game long term, And the bet here for Frontier might just straight up be that we're going to focus on 24. We're going to give them some DLC this summer, and that's just going to have to be it. Now, that isn't great by any means of the imagination, honestly, but I think that is the way things are going. The meeting, as mentioned in the article, if we go back to that, if I can find it here, that's the correct one, I believe. The meeting, as you can see, was in September. So if they were planning to completely cut off F1 Manager, they would probably have ceased support and cut their losses a couple of months ago then. Because since then, we've had 1.8, we've had 1.9, and generally they have been updates to try and improve the game. Now, if they were going to cut support completely, all they would have to do is basically just go ahead and fix every bug. If they want to be, if they want to be nice, if they want to totally abandon it, then they don't do that. But I think there might still be something to the fact that I do believe that F1 has some sort of clause in the contract that says they still need to support the game for the entire cycle, which would end next year. So I don't know. Honestly, there's not really much to be said here. Frontier has two franchises that you will that has been doing not so great, the WAM stuff and also the F1 Manager stuff. I think the situation in Frontier just straight up boils down to greed. I think that is the best way I can describe it. Greed from the management side of things. They wanted to dip their hands in too many pockets at the same time, and as a result, games are suffering. Now, with F1 Manager, I kind of just want to say this. With F1 Manager, we all kind of saw with 22 that it wasn't ready yet. It needed probably another year in the oven. And if Frontier had just gone out at 22's release and said that this game isn't ready, we know that. We agree with the players that it's not ready. We are going to release it in early access for this first year. And we are going to be listening to player feedback to try and create a better game for next year, which would be kind of a full release. Would that go against their contract? Probably. But I think that would have gotten a lot more positive vibes, positive feedback, rather than what they did with 22. Because they killed this series, I think, with that PR statements 2 months after release. Because the game was buggy, the game had problems, and if they had taken advantage of the early access label, I hate when games do that. But if you do it properly, you call your first edition of the game early access, you say that we're trying to make an F1 management game. We aren't there yet, we will be honest. As such, we are discounting the game by, say, just 25% or so, 30% maybe, this first year. We will be listening to feedback, and we will be, over the next year, focusing on fixing those bugs for next year's edition, while we also fix some of the bugs in-game. Basically, they fixed the bugs that are currently in 22. If they'd done that, while, say, creating new features, new balancing, basically try balancing out in 22, put it into 23 as a main feature. Well, not really a balancing part, but you get what I'm talking about. I'm talking a little bit in circles here, but basically the idea that I have that would have been better here is to do 22 as early access. Tell the audience that is expecting it that this is early access. This is a game that isn't finished. It needs a little bit more love and polish, probably over the next year. And if you want to be part of that process, you can buy your way in and you can try it out while it's still in basically a beta release. I think that would be far better received, because F1 Manager series did kind of destroy itself on 22's release. Now, this might just be me speaking copium and with hindsight, which is 2020, but it is what I feel, and it is honestly a little bit of a shame how 22's release and subsequent management over the next few months was actually handled. But yeah, that is it. I don't know if I should dive too deep into this, into what I wanted to talk about, but generally, the questions that were asked in chat, I'm trying to also respond to them as much as possible. There's been a lot of them. If you want me to kind of do another, basically more deeper dive, I kind of talk about why F1 Manager is probably failing, let's be honest. Let me know what you think. I've been thinking about making a video like that for a while. It's going to take a bit more effort, though, than this one, let's just put it. I spent basically a day here to kind of look up what I could, try and figure out what was going on. And as I said, it does seem likely that what is reported by Zeus Capital is true. But we'll just have to wait and see what Frontier actually says. So until they actually do say something, I'd say just relax. Don't worry too much about it. Nothing we do as players here is going to change the facts anyway. So let's just see what happens. I have hopes. Are they from a place of logic? Not really. It's just, I do enjoy this game for all its flaws. But that is what it is. Let me know what you think. Hope I answered some of your questions in this video. Probably didn't. Probably caused you more doubts. But I wanted to try my hand at this. So yeah, let me know what you think. And I'll see you next time. Thank you for watching. Bye-bye.